Central banks control the money supply. They control the liquidity. They determine what assets are priced at. Central banks determine which companies succeed and which fail. With intention, countries have found themselves in massive amounts of debt. So massive that they could never pay it back. Now, we watch as these nations sell off their most precious assets in order to pay off their debt. A plan masterminded by the Technocratic Elite who pursue complete dominance. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into exactly what is going on today in countries all over the world and why this is critical. Beginning with this. This is the newest piece of information. The multi-millionaire star of the Brazilian version of The Apprentice TV show, who took over Sao Paulo's mayor this month, is set to embark on the biggest municipal privatization drive in the country's history. This is just one example, okay? All I want to say is that country after country, cities, states, provinces, they're getting into too much debt. I've shown you that. You've seen it on your own. I know. And what has happened is that just like an individual, they begin to sell off their assets in order to recoup some of that debt. But look at the case of Greece, where we had CDS, or the credit default swaps, were financial weapons used against the country. The country gets into even more debt than it already was in and finds itself in a predicament. And they chose this route because, as you would find with any individual who's suffering with debt, they look to their wealth, their assets, their savings, and they begin to sell it off. Look, you do what you have to, right? Well, understand. I understand. But what happens when you are forced into this? Then you have a different picture. So they're talking about the plans that Brazil has here, Sao Paulo has. He plans to sell off everything from Sao Paulo's carnival venue to rights to the city's cemeteries, aiming to raise more than 7 billion reals, $2.2 billion. And, you know, I get it. I get what you're trying to do, but I see the bigger picture. I see what the technocratic elite have done. I can see what the globalists have done. The central banks initiate this policy that you have to, for some strange reason, have a central bank that loans money to the government at interest, making it impossible to ever pay back, because in order to pay that back, you need to create more money. And you do so through thin air, of course. And so the debt expands and expands and expands. And no country ever seems to ever get out of debt. So what we have are countries finding themselves in this predicament. They sell off their assets in order to get out of it. It is a genius plan. Who's buying the assets? Well, in this example right here, this is Greece. We saw those in Greece basically suffering on a personal level. Unemployment was extremely high, still is today. And then you saw the country engaging in sell-off. This is just one example I wanted to show you. The official body set to help privatize Greek holdings. Real estate sales go beyond luxury island resorts. They wanted to sell the Athens International Airport, looking for potential partners in 28 government properties, including the headquarters for the Ministries of Justice, Health, Education, and Internal Affairs, the Athens police headquarters as well. And then you're looking at other things as well here, even motorways, various national ports, and jets as well. Okay, big time assets. And the point I make here is that, where would it stop? And the question remains, who is going to buy this? Is there going to be some sort of, let's say, conflict of interest, some predicaments down the road? What if it's a foreign government, indirectly or directly, purchasing these assets? It could become a very serious problem later down the road. This is a very, very dangerous scheme to sell off state assets. This is another thing from Greece as well, but look at this, what they mentioned. Greek islands, yes, of course, that's been done already. Nature preserves or even ancient ruins. What would happen if they sold off some of their greatest assets? How in the world could you ever explain this to the following generations? All right, quickly, I want to go into this. Italy, selling off state assets to reduce its debt mountain. Once again, just travel through Europe for a moment here. You see all of the countries, they refer to them as the pigs: Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain, all in heavy debt. So what do? All of them were discussing, at the very least, selling off assets. Treasury says Italy can sell 54 billion in state assets. There's a whole article here, and one of the things that they wanted to sell off, real estate, and number 2, 10 billion euros in carbon permits. And it's, whatever it is, I always try to consider that it will be a tiptoe effect. It will be an escalation. So what it is today, later down the road, it simply just compounds and gets worse and worse and worse. Spain to sell off a quarter of its properties. Wow, that's so generous of them. The Spanish government has approved a plan to sell a quarter of its state-owned properties in a bid to raise hundreds of millions and boost the government's empty coffers. Yes, it could certainly do that. Okay, they're going to make a lot of money back. But what do you lose out on? You're losing out on something that could be very important, not just in monetary terms, but also to the people, to the environment, the whole, traditions and everything else in a country. So it's very, very dangerous policy to do this. Portugal, same situation, is embarking on a sweeping fire sale of state companies over the coming months, possibly even privatizing the state broadcaster. And it goes on. And these are the decisions not made by their own countries. These are decisions made by those that exist on top. These are the supranational entities, the technocratic elite. This is particularly evident in Europe, but it is not exclusive to them. I wrote about it in my new book, which is going to release soon. I promise you. This is part of that new book. So here you get to see a little preview. I entitled this one little section, Vultures Picnic, after the excellent book. After Greece began getting torn apart by the financial vultures, they needed to sell off precious assets in order to make their money back. The Emir of Qatar bought 6 Greek islands for rock-bottom prices. Literally, 6 islands for millions, a few $1 million. And although that's a large sum of money, it's not when you compare it to what they're actually buying. Since then, Greece has been forced to engage in a privatization program, paying off the banker-created debt. That's the point I wanted to make there. And then I make this final point here to end the video off. It's only a matter of time before priceless national treasures like the Colosseum and the Eiffel Tower get sold off to the banking establishments and major corporations. This is what will happen. I assure you, it will take some time, but this is already underway. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. If you found the video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. So head over to Amazon, where they have a look inside feature that will allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care.